Most intriguing to me. I've discovered that his father doesn't think his parents don't think their kid did this. I thought, please pardon me. That is very different from what we have been told by the media. Recall that this incredible tale was reported by the media. Candace Owens and Joe Rogan are both stating unequivocally, Charlie Kirk's case doesn't add up. You'll see why the internet is going crazy over this story after you hear what they've discovered. Joe and Candace are not only exchanging viewpoints, they are making connections that the mainstream refuses to. Their results are startling, so it makes sense that people everywhere are beginning to doubt everything. You'll hear precisely what Joe Rogan stated about all those strange elements that simply don't add together in this breakdown. Candace Owens' startling assertions from her own research will also be heard. When the video footage appears later, you'll see why both of them think there are significant gaps in the official narrative. We are discussing bizarre topics. Weapons that defy the evidence are impossible. Somehow, deceptive suspects appear at many national disasters, and texts that sound like poorly written screenplays. Not to mention the widow who continues to post, smile, and act as though nothing had happened. It's frigid and surreal, according to fans. The entire situation is suspect. And at last, people are calling for genuine responses. Let's clarify the fundamentals first, though, before we go into the ugly specifics. Charlie Kirk was not your average public person. He was the driving force behind Turning Point USA. The father became aware of his son's guilt. That's it then. Because this guy, this mysterious guy was a buddy and simply had a connection with Tyler. He called a friend to assist him in persuading his son to turn himself in. You have to do the right thing here, they finally said. We are certain that this is you. That was the atmosphere. That is undoubtedly what the media was presenting to us. A rising star in conservative politics. He established a multi-million-dollar fortune at the age of just 31. However, on September 10, 2025, during what ought to have been a standard student Q&A at Utah Valley University, things fell apart. Charlie Kirk's life was abruptly ended on stage as gunfire erupted. The authorities said they had everything figured out in just 33 hours. Tyler Robinson, a 22-year-old, was detained after they claimed he was the culprit. No questions asked, case closed. But wait, that's precisely where strange things start to appear. Candace Owens started her own investigation since she didn't believe it at all, and the results were really disturbing. Charlie Kirk personally told 3 people that something was about to happen the day before he passed away, according to Candace. Not months, not weeks prior, he informed them. I think they're going to kill me. Literally the day before. Give that some thought. He was already afraid for his life less than 24 hours before he left. The official version was deemed strange by Joe Rogan. He wasn't lying either. He made the argument that too many things are illogical. The weapon does not correspond with the wounds. They also said that he disassembled it and then reassembled it. The underscore should shut up. If you were an expert at disassembling a pistol, do you know how long it would take to disassemble a gun in order to fit it in a backpack which, incidentally, won't fit? It won't fit. After he leaves the roof, he reconnects it in some way. What? Suspects who appear to have appeared out of thin air and a time frame that seems unreal. Joe was direct in his statement. This doesn't add up. To be honest, he is correct. This is where the temperature drops even further. Candace Owens made a statement that ought to have made headlines, but for some reason the media chose to remain silent. She said 2 of the 3 people Charlie warned have written proof. Actual text messages showing that Charlie knew something was about to happen. Candace responded, 3 people told me off the record, and 2 of them have written communication from Charlie himself. He informed them the day before he passed away, I think they're going to kill me. Imagine that. Charlie literally predicted his own death. And yet, nobody in power seems to care. No federal follow-up, no press conference, no transparency, nothing. Candace said she's begging those 3 witnesses to come forward publicly. But so far, silence. And that's not just suspicious. That's alarming. And just when you think it can't get weirder, it does. Candace revealed that on the same day Charlie was killed, a military plane flew from Texas straight to Utah, landing just hours before the shooting. Coincidence? Maybe. But in this story, coincidences don't come cheap. That military plane didn't just fly by. It arrived right around the time Charlie was shot. And get this story is horseshit. Like, none of these things make any sense to me. Like, you're telling me that this kid, who's not military trained, this guy, first of all, how did he get to the roof? How come nobody was looking? How come nobody was like, there's a direct line of sight between where he's sitting and those roofs? You guys didn't check. You don't have a drone. Like, that's insane. So, he's on the roof. He shoots. He jumps from the roof. He jumps down 14 feet. Radar shows it dipped unusually low over the exact area of the incident with the tail. Number and 1098 LY on Earth, would a military aircraft be flying that low in the middle of a civilian event? What was it even doing there? Candace Owens dug into the records and found that this same plane had previously been used by the U.S. military, registered under Lacey Aviation LLC. But now, nobody's saying who's contracting it. That silence alone speaks volumes. Candace has been saying from day one that this wasn't some random isolated act. She's convinced this was part of a coordinated military-style operation. As she put it, the more you peel back the onion, the clearer it gets. This was a military operation. And honestly, the deeper you look, the harder it is to argue with that. Because if this really was just a lone 22-year-old, why was there a military aircraft circling above the scene right when the shots were fired? That doesn't make sense for a so-called random shooting, does it? Candace evenkled out the FBI director directly. Hey, Kash Patel, most transparent ever. Except when it comes to Epstein. What's up with this plane? She said it plain. Patel definitely knows who contracted that flight, but he's not saying a word. No answers, just total silence. And when powerful people refuse to answer simple questions, it usually means one thing. They're hiding something. But that's not all. Because now, Joe Rogan's findings take things to a whole new level. When Joe heard the official story about the weapon supposedly used in the shooting, he couldn't help but call it ridiculous. According to investigators Tyler Robinson, this 22-year-old kid, the very day before Charlie Kirk died, he expressed that he thought he was going to be killed. He told these people, "I think they're going to kill me." Okay? He did not express that to me. So I am telling you this based off the testimony of 3 people. And I am saying this because I hope that these people who I think are good will be inspired to come forward with that. Supposedly used his grandfather's World War rifle. Yeah, an antique gun over 100 years old with no serial number. Already sketchy, right? But it gets even crazier. Officials claim Tyler somehow took that old rifle apart, packed all the separate pieces into a backpack, climbed onto a rooftop, and then magically reassembled the whole weapon up there before firing the shot. Joe Rogan flat out laughed at the claim, saying, "They said he took it apart and put it back together again." Shut up. Do you know how much time that would take? Even if you are highly skilled, it's wild. Even experts are saying that process would take serious tools and precision. So how could a 22-year-old with no training pull that off under pressure in the dark and hit his target perfectly? It just doesn't add up. And Joe was dead on. That rifle story makes no sense whatsoever. Have you ever actually seen a World War I rifle? Those things are massive, long, heavy, and built like a tank. There's no way you're just breaking one down and slipping it into a backpack like it's a Lego set. Even if someone somehow managed to cram the pieces in, how long would it take to put it all back together on a rooftop, in public, under pressure? Again, those conversations I had were off the record. I honor that. If I say it's off record, it stays off record. But I'm hoping that watching what I am doing and feeling the energy that is rising across the world for people who want to know what the heck happened on 9/10. You know, they will be brave and they will say, yeah, Charlie did the day before he died think that he was going to be killed, and maybe tell us who they are once and for all. Who are they? Who is the they that he thought was going to kill him? You'd need tools, time, and serious military training to pull that off, not to mention steady hands and focus. Something no random 22-year-old could pull off in a real situation like that. Joe Rogan didn't hold back when he heard the story. He said it straight. This story. He said it straight. This. The story is horseshit. None of these things make any sense to me. And honestly, he's right. Even a basic look at the weapon and the setup completely destroys the official version. It's like the story was written by someone who's never even held a rifle before. But things only get crazier from here, because now we need to talk about the decoy guy. This part is absolutely insane. Right after the shooting, witnesses say there was an older man at the scene who started shouting, "I did it! I did it!" And then, out of nowhere, he took his pants off. Yeah, seriously. Full chaos. People thought he was either in shock or trying to distract attention. But when Joe Rogan and his team looked deeper into who this man was, that's when it got straight up bizarre. This same man has allegedly been spotted at multiple other tragedies. 9/11's, the Boston Marathon bombing, and even other incidents involving fake bomb threats. Joe couldn't believe it and asked the question everyone's thinking. How are you at all these different things? What are the odds? I don't know. It's one thing if your husband dies, period. It's another thing if your husband dies at age 31 unexpectedly. It's another thing if your 31-year-old husband unexpectedly dies because he gets publicly executed with blood gushing out in front of thousands of people screaming and running away. That's like something he joked that if someone ran those odds through an AI system, it would probably say 0, because seriously, what are the chances one person just happens to be at every major national tragedy for the last 2 decades? So, what's the deal here? Is he just the unluckiest man alive? Or is something else going on? Joe put it bluntly. Maybe the guy's professionally insane. Or maybe he's planted there to create chaos and throw off the public because right after the Charlie Kirk shooting, that same decoy guy got arrested. But not for anything related to the case. Nope, he was suddenly hit with child-related charges. And just like that, it became legally impossible for anyone to interview him or get his side of the story. Convenient, right? Too convenient. Because once those charges dropped, every potential question about what he saw or what he might have been doing there got buried. Joe Rogan said what everyone's thinking. Does that sound like a coincidence to you? It definitely doesn't to him, and it doesn't to anyone paying attention either. And now comes another shocking layer. Tyler Robinson's family. Candace Owens actually spoke to them directly, and what they told her completely contradicts the media's version. According to the news, Tyler's father supposedly realized his son was guilty and turned him in. A classic good dad does the right thing narrative. But Candace says that's not the truth. She spoke to people close to the family, and they claimed Tyler's parents never believed he was guilty at all. They told her point blank their son didn't do it. And according to Candace, that changes everything, because if the family's denying it, then the entire story we've been fed by the media might be built on lies. Candace teased what she found next, saying, of most interest to me." And what comes after that line is what left everyone's jaws on the floor. Candace Owens dropped another shocking twist, and this one completely flips the story upside down. What she learned is that Tyler Robinson's own father doesn't believe his son committed this crime. In fact, nobody in the family does. That's huge because if the parents don't believe it, who actually turned Tyler in? According to Candace, it wasn't his dad at all. It was a family friend, someone who used to be a police detective, who made the call. This ex-cop supposedly told the family that Tyler had been identified as the shooter and warned that if Tyler didn't surrender peacefully, SWAT would storm the house. Can you imagine hearing that about your own kid out of nowhere? Tyler was reportedly shocked and confused, swearing up and down that he didn't kill Charlie Kirk. And here's the kicker. Candace's sources claimed that Tyler had never even stepped foot on the Utah Valley University campus. He wasn't a student there. He'd been accepted to Utah State University, a completely different school. So, how does that make sense? How could a 22-year-old who's never even visited UVU suddenly know the exact rooftop layout, navigate multiple buildings, and make a perfect long-distance shot like a trained sniper? The official story gives no explanation for that. None. There's one photo floating around that shows Tyler near the area that day, supposedly grabbing something at Dairy Queen. But Candace says even that raises more questions than it answers. Sure, maybe that's how they linked him to the scene, but what was he doing there if he didn't go to that school? Too many weird details. Not enough real answers, but now we've got to talk about something uncomfortable. Charlie Kirk's widow, Erica. Nobody wants to accuse a grieving spouse. It feels wrong. It feels cruel. But the internet can't ignore the strange behavior that's followed since Charlie's passing. Nick Fuentes was one of the first to call it out. And honestly, he just said what a lot of people have been thinking, but were too scared to say. Erica reportedly took control of Turning Point USA just 72 hours, 3 days after Charlie was killed. Not weeks later, not after the funeral, just 3 days. She was already filming content, smiling on camera, giving speeches, and acting like business as usual. Nick Fuentes said it straight. It's one thing if your husband dies. It's another thing if your 31-year-old husband gets publicly executed with blood gushing out in front of thousands of screaming people and you're back on camera days later. And honestly, that hit a nerve because he's not wrong. If your husband gets shot in front of a live audience, wouldn't you need time to even breathe again, to grieve, to process? Nick said what everyone else was whispering. It's super inappropriate. It's weird. Something is off here, and I don't like it. Of course, people grieve differently. And maybe Erica was trying to stay strong or distract herself with work. But when you mix in money suddenly disappearing from Turning Point's accounts and the fact that Charlie was planning a major audit of the organization right before Headied, it stops looking like bad timing and starts looking like a pattern. That's why Candace and others are pushing harder for answers. Because if Charlie knew something, if that audit was about to expose something bigger, then the people who benefited most from his silence might not be strangers at all. Something about this whole situation doesn't sit right. And the deeper it goes, the darker it gets. Now, let's talk about the part that might be the real key to everything: the money. Because when you follow the money, the truth usually isn't far behind. Just 1 week before Charlie Kirk was killed, he publicly announced a massive internal audit at Turning Point USA. He said millions of dollars were missing. Yes, millions. And he was determined to track down where it went and who was behind it. Then, exactly 7 days later, he was dead. You don't need to be a detective to see the problem there. Candace Owens said this audit could have exposed something much bigger than anyone expected, and that might be what cost Charlie his life. But then she shared something even more eerie, something deeply personal. She revealed that she had a vivid dream after Charlie's death where he came to her and said he had been betrayed. Now, whether or not you believe in dreams doesn't matter. Candace does. And she swore this one felt real, like a message meant to be heard. She said, "I don't know who exactly it is that betrayed him, but I felt in the dream that it's soon going to be revealed. It's inevitable. Nothing and no one will stop the truth from coming out." Then she said something that gave everyone chills. That when the truth surfaces, it will have international consequences. Think about that. International. That's not just political gossip or workplace drama. That's global. So what could Charlie have uncovered that would have caused shockwaves across borders? And more importantly, why aren't the people closest to him fighting for answers? Candace pointed out that it's only people like Tucker Carlson, Megyn Kelly, and herself who are digging into this. Meanwhile, the folks who work side by side with Charlie every single day are in complete silence. No public statements, no push for transparency, nothing. And Candace said that silence alone feels very suspicious. She asked, "Why hasn't anyone made a move to vindicate what I've been saying about what he was going through?" Because seriously, if your friend, your leader, or your colleague dies under such bizarre circumstances, wouldn't you want justice? Wouldn't you demand answers? Now, let's rewind for a second. Back to when this whole tragedy first hit the world. Joe Rogan was literally recording his podcast live when the news broke that Charlie had been shot. You can actually hear the shock in his voice as he reads it out loud, stunned and speechless. This just happened. We just found out that Charlie Kirk got shot. That moment hit hard. It wasn't just another headline. It was real, raw, and terrifying. And ever since that day, people like Joe and Candace haven't stopped asking the same question that's haunting millions. Who really betrayed Charlie Kirk, and why? Joe Rogan's reaction when the news broke was pure disbelief. You could hear it in his voice. He was scrolling live, refreshing Twitter, trying to piece together what had just happened in real time. His words hit hard. Real time. His words hit hard. It doesn't seem real. It feels surreal. It's going to take a long time before we even process this as something that really happened. That moment said it all. No one expected this. Joe also pointed out how divided things have gotten in America, saying that some people would actually celebrate Charlie's death just because of his political stance. No one deserves this, Joe said. Not for having different opinions, not for saying what they believe. Then he added, "But I know people are going to celebrate it because this is a messed up time." And he was right. Sadly, that's exactly what happened. Some people really did celebrate online, posting memes and comments like it was some kind of win. And that's beyond disturbing. But this story is bigger than one tragedy. It matters because when major voices like Joe Rogan and Candace Owens both start publicly questioning an official narrative, that's not just gossip. That's a signal something isn't right. When timelines don't line up, when witnesses vanish, and when details make no sense. That's when citizens in a free society have the duty to ask for answers. That's not conspiracy. That's common sense. Candace Owens said she's been getting attacked for not keeping quiet, for simply asking hard questions. Critics are telling her to shut up and let the family grieve, but she fired back with one of the realest responses yet. They want us to believe the best way to honor Charlie is to stay silent. That's the exact opposite of what he stood for. Charlie literally spent his life asking questions, speaking truth, and challenging narratives. She's right. The best way to honor Charlie Kirk isn't by staying quiet. It's by doing what he did every single day, asking what really happened and not settling for half answers. And Joe Rogan added another layer that really hits home. He said if someone wanted the public to lose faith completely, they'd flood the internet with so much confusion, so many weird, Conflicting details that nobody would ever know what's real anymore. Maybe that's the point, Joe said. Maybe they're throwing in all this nonsense to confuse everyone until the truth gets buried under chaos. And honestly, doesn't that feel like what's happening right now? Let's lay it all out one last time. Joe Rogan and Candace Owens have both raised serious, detailed questions that still haven't been answered. We've got a weapons story that's flat out unbelievable. We've got a decoy suspect who's mysteriously shown up at multiple national tragedies. We've got Charlie warning 3 people the day before he died that he thought they were coming for him. We've got a military plane circling the area at the same time as the shooting. We've got a widow who took over Turning Point USA within 72 hours. And we've got millions of dollars missing from the organization Charlie was preparing to audit. So, was this really just one confused 22-year-old acting alone? Or are we staring at something much bigger, something that goes way beyond what we're being told? We might not have every answer right now, but one thing's clear. The official story has more holes than Swiss cheese. And when people like Joe Rogan and Candace Owens, 2 of the most outspoken voices in media, both say something doesn't add up, maybe it's time the rest of us start paying closer attention too. What do you think? Do all these inconsistencies make you suspicious? Or do you believe the official version? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one, and I genuinely want to hear what you think about this. And if you want to stay updated as more pieces of this story come out, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss a thing, because something tells me this story is far from over. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next.